Has Spain gone too far with its property regulations? And is it about to backfire? Today, we're joined by a property law expert to discuss this and more. Stick around and let's dive deep. Hey guys, welcome back to the High Homes YouTube channel. Welcome to one of the most interesting videos that we have ever produced. Today, we're here with Miguel Manzanares, property law expert, one of the top law firms in Spain. And Miguel, before we go into what's happened in 25, what's happening in 2026, I'd like for you, just to give our audience a very brief intro to who you are, your law firm, and then I've got a lot of questions for you.
Well, I am the CEO and founder of Manzanares Lawyers. Manzanares Lawyers is the largest law firm in respect of the volume of transactions. We have been representing within the last 30 years to a volume of more than 35,000 deals, 35,000 acquisitions. So therefore we count with a very large experience in property law within this 30 years anniversary that we're doing now. Wow. On 2026.
Miguel, 35,000 property transactions is an unbelievable number. 35,000 transactions, that means 35,000 buyers, 35,000 sellers, 35,000 title deeds, and the experience you guys have gained, and also your view of the Spanish real estate market. And that's exactly why I wanted to bring you on the channel to talk about this today. And it's all about regulations. Let's start with where we've come from, okay? We are now at the beginning of 26, right? We've had a 2025 full of new property regulations with our government, led by Pedro Sánchez, throwing different things at our property market, starting with our 100% tax, which was announced last year, which obviously nothing happened with it. We've covered it plenty in this channel. Then rental regulations and other announcements he's made this year. Let's start with rental regulations, which I think is the hottest subject right now. As of February 2026, 16% of all Airbnb units that were for rent in the short-term rental market of Spain have been wiped off, according to the INE statistics, right? So it seems like the Spanish government has declared war on short-term rentals. What's your view on what the Spanish government is doing with the rental regulations of Airbnb short-term units?
Well, for the lawyers, has been a year, we can say even longer time, 2 years of nightmare. It's been nightmare because we as lawyers, we are obliged to study and get updated for new regulations. But if there is a subject that's been so much over-regulated with so much new regulation and you didn't really put in practice yet that regulation that was enforced, when you have another one and another change and another modification, amendment, so this has been a little bit like a nightmare because in the end, there is a social analysis of the housing shortage. It's evident that Spain is through a shortage of housing, and therefore there are really many formulas of regulating this. But it looks like they didn't pay attention to many other fields of regulating this than really restricting the capacity of many property owners about renting out their properties because of, therefore, if they are not really renting out the short term, they are an incentive for the long term, and therefore, if people have access to the long-term rentals, therefore, this housing shortage is really resolved. And therefore, they've been limiting the ways in which property owners are able to rent the property. So this is really crazy somehow.
I mean, last year alone, I think we had you update our core audience up to 3 times with different changes, different implementations. It seemed like they announced the law, they approved a rental restriction, different rental restriction regulations, and then throughout the years, things were changing all the time. It's a never-changing scenario, right?
Yeah.
Having said that, the real estate market in what we can talk for is Costa del Sol, right? The Spanish real estate market is huge. It's very different to talk about Catalonia than it is to talk about Andalusia. The rental market here, if you look at the 16% of Airbnb units that were wiped off short-term rentals, most of them are in Baleares, Catalonia, and not actually in Malaga. So it hasn't affected our market as profoundly as other autonomic regions. How are these rental restrictions actually affecting the market?
I would say that they're really not affecting that much. The reason why is because we have a very vast number of properties in a very big market like we have. There is one principle that they couldn't really attack because it's got really that element of inconstitutionality, which is really the retroactivity of the applications of whatever decision is made. So therefore, if someone has gained the registration of the property with the Andalusia government RTA, with someone has everything in relation of the Registro Único with the national government, that property, and this is really a very important step, that property retains that right, and that right of renting out is with that property, not with that property and the owner with the property. So that property can be sold to somebody else, and that somebody else can use the right to rent out that property. So if we bear in mind that there is a very big number of properties under this, that every single property owner has been complying with more and more restrictions, and more appetite of restricting, over regulating, but we have a big number of properties. The reality that I can see in the market is that big number of property owners are still able to comply with the legislation, comply with the restrictions, and still offer a very good number of properties in the rental market. And some of the developments are prepared from the very beginning to approve and comply with the legislation to be able to rent out those properties from the first minute of the game. So therefore, if we put them all together, I would say that there is a very good balance of properties that are rentable and a good balance of people that are willing to rent short term, combined with also mid and long term. In practical terms, I would say, and I have a very good thermometer because we have a very big number of member staff, over 90 people working in my same law firm. We are present in every segment of the market, in every geographic region of Costa del Sol, and we didn't see that kind of reduce of volume. The volume is still there, and yeah, there is a big appetite of restricting, but the reality is that the market is really operating almost normally.
Funny enough, Miguel, even the European Union stepped in. So, 2025, Spain's implemented so many different regulations. One of those regulations was creating el Código Registral Único, right? This national registry number for Airbnb units. And recently, the European Union even warned Spain that this was contrary to European law. So, like, what we look at and when we look at the market is like regulations that are being putting in, the European Union saying one thing, the Spanish government saying another. Walk us through this.
Well, the thing is, we have in Spain 17 different regions, equivalent in respect of the autonomy of an state. We are not really an Estado federal. We don't have a country, so these are autonomías. But in the end, the capacity of legislation, the capacity and autonomy is very, very big. And therefore, the European Union said, if you are delegating to those autonomías, to those governments, the capacity of regulating about rental, why are you taking away from them certain points, willing to step into a field that you already delegated to the autonomía? And this is the autonomía of Andalusia, who in theory and in practice, they had the competence, the capacity of regulating about the rental. So they create an over structure to try to take away, to rob a certain capacity that was already given by law, by constitution. So this is really something that is very contradicting. And this is why the European Union is stepping into this, to try to avoid that they make difficulties and limitations about something that the autonomías are able to regulate. And in Andalusia, we have Registro de Turismo de Andalucía. It's like a registry of tourism of Andalusia. This is really a body, an institution that is accepting under a number of rules and requirements the registration of a property. Everybody complies with that legislation. Everybody is submitting to the vote of majority, certain majority of the community, whether the short-term rental is permitted or not.
Yeah.
They comply with that. They register everything according to that law. And when everything is being done by citizens willing to rent out, there is an appetite from the central government to over-regulate certain fields that were delegated to the autonomia. So this is what the European Union is calling the attention to Spain, to the central government, to say, listen, you can't really regulate about fields that you have delegated. If you delegate it, you have delegated.
So what's your view on, like, the European Union gives 5 months to Spain to do what?
Well, to abolish or to modify significantly, I would say, as the minute that they have to modify this is to abolish this registro único. The registro único is another requirement over the requirement and over the requirement to make everything more and more difficult. Wow. To deny, under my point of view, and this is not Miguel Manzanares as lawyer, is Miguel Manzanares as a Spanish citizen that has an opinion like everybody else in Spain, right? Is the appetite of resolving a deeper and more complex situation about the housing shortage. Yeah. The housing shortage is, under my point of view, and again, not like a lawyer, but like a citizen, it's got to be resolved by facilitating systems of producing buildable land. The process of changing a land from rustic or from non-buildable to buildable is gone through a process of 7, 8, 10 years, 15 years. This is ridiculous. So it's got to be established a way in which you facilitate that process. You are giving to developers the possibility of producing quickly and more easily land. And if this is the case, they will buy the land. The land price will be very much more competitive. Consequently, the price of the property will be very much more competitive because they don't have to pay that kind of price for the land, because today the land is so unique, so limited, so little, that the price is really crazy.
But also, like, we are a country with so much land. And that's the funny thing, right? Like, we're a big country, we have a lot of land banks. It's just a lot of bureaucracy surrounding these banks of massive plots just can't be built on because of bureaucracy.
It is really a crazy bureaucracy in which the administrations are not prepared to deal in a fluent way the evolution from buildable land to urban land. So the land is buildable, but you got to have a report from roads, from sewage, from drainage, from electricity supply, from that, and those reports are taking forever. The administration is taking forever because all these bureaucratic steps are really taking. So therefore, there is no production of new buildable land. And when there is no production of buildable land, those very few little buildable lands, they grow up in price. And the developers can only build on a buildable land, not really anywhere, right? So therefore, the developers have the will, the appetite, the capacity of doing very much more. But the problem that they found is that there is very little buildable land to be done. Therefore, the price is very high. The price of the property is obligatorily very, very high too. And the administration have to determine a new law, a new way of facilitating the evolution of that land into buildable. If they did it that way, there will be very much more land to be built. There will be, the prices of the land will reduce significantly to something reasonable. And therefore, the production of the new construction and new, this is really the solution. The solution is not limiting to people the constitutional rights. That, by the way, this is not working. It's not working because the rentals are still going on and going on and going on. So
it's interesting. one of your colleagues was on the channel a while back, and we were talking about the amount of new developments that Spain's builds year to year. I think we're around 85 to 90,000 properties a year, when we need something closer to like 300 to 400,000 properties every single year. So it just shows the lack of housing supply. It's something that's happening all over Europe, and it's all over the world, the housing crisis, worse in other places than others. But something that's quite contradicting, and I want to know your opinion on this, is, we live in a country where tourism is a massive factor for our GDP, right? So we have Malaga, which is...
Number one,
right? What would we do without tourism? So, I sat down with José María García Urbano, which is the Estepona mayor, and his view was that the Spanish government has an oversimplistic regulatory vision on the housing market, and I liked his take. And his view, which I just love to sort of put on the table, is that we have two forces that contradict each other, right? We have a shorting housing crisis, but at the same time, we have a growing touristic economy. We've mentioned on this channel, I'll just throw it out there for people that might know, the Spanish government has announced, the ampliación of the Malaga airport from 25 million passengers to 36 million passengers within 10 years, right? That means that the entire Costa del Sol is going to be hosting more and more tourism. I was going to stress our infrastructure, but these people need somewhere to stay, right?
yeah, this is really the analysis that they have to do. The reflection of the authorities and political people will be, there is an inevitable move about people willing to enjoy time in Spain. This is number one sector of our economy, of our GDP.
Yeah.
So if I have the first sector of my economy is tourism. If I have waves of more and more people willing to come here, and I have a housing deficit, how do I resolve all this equation? By limiting that people can enjoy a rented property for 5, 7, 8 days. What do these people do? They go to a hotel. We see that since we have a booming about the short-term rentals and Airbnb and other portals, the price of the hotels in Spain are increasing and increasing and increasing.
That's true.
I live in Spain, and I've been through the prices that you pay per night of a 4-star hotel category, and they are increasing in every city in Spain because the tourism is growing. Even when they have a theoretical competitor called short-term rental. With the short-term rental, the price of the hotel is still increasing. What is going to happen if you limit the short-term rental with the price per night in a hotel? It's going to go crazy, and it's not going to resolve the housing deficit. I think that the reality of Spain is that we have two things: shortage of housing. This is number one. Number two, there is a new wave. Really, it's not new, because tourism has been important for many, many years and decades. But we have the tourism coming to Spain, loving Spain, enjoying Spain. So we have to make sure that they still enjoy Spain in a combination of payable nights of hotel, not really crazy, that escalate to the moon, and the combination is got to be short-term rentals of nice quality. I'm not against that they are limiting that. I really want them to put a number of factors that they increase in quality.
Yeah, I agree.
You want to enjoy a short-term rental, fair enough. You are permitted, but you have to comply with A, B, C. So the quality of the apartments that are offered to the market have to comply with certain level of quality. I do agree with that. Totally. And then I do agree that we have to have a hybrid system in which we are together a number of good quality apartments, short-term, with something affordable nights of hotels, not really that go crazy. So these are really the two systems that have to stay. And in a separate way or in parallel way, we have to analyze in depth with reflection how to resolve the problem of the shortage of housing. And the problem is resolved by creating less bureaucratic procedures, more facilities, more speed, and then you have to convert more land because there are really more and more people willing to live and enjoy Spain, and they have to have a house. So these are the 2 points that, again, I say this like Miguel Manzanares, right?
Sure.
Not
Perfect.
like the lawyer, right? So therefore, good combination of because go to Madrid and pay a 4-star. I go very frequently to Madrid. I have a daughter that lives there, and I've been always sharing some professional business, going once every 2 weeks to Madrid. Every single time is really pay more and more for the same typical hotels. I'm not moving to different hotels and then the price. No, same hotels. I have many years in which I know how my graphic of will be like, I don't know. So where this is going to end up. Even with a hybrid system of short-term rental, if they try to kill the short-term rental, how much am I going to pay?
And how much is that going to affect the tourism market? That's the question, right?
Exactly. So therefore, I would say hotel is very happy with the level of occupation. Hotel is very happy with the pricing that they are able to do. The short-term rentals got to be regulated, but not to prohibit it. It's got to be regulated to increase the quality. If we want to have a tourism like the first economy, they have to really enjoy a beautiful stay in Spain, in a beautiful apartment that complies with a lot of amenities and facilities of super quality. And then the housing deficit. This is a different element, and I can only see developers are all of them with a strong appetite, capacity to do more, but they don't find buildable land. Let's work on that direction.
Miguel, thank you so much for jumping on the channel. Today we dive deep into the short-term rental regulations and your view on everything to do with the latest regulations is super interesting. So thanks for joining us. And I would like to send a message to you guys. I hope you enjoyed this special expert talks. And there are so many topics that we can cover when it comes to Spanish rental regulations, property regulations, everything in this sort of sphere of content. If there's any piece of content or any questions that you guys have about other Spanish property regulations, mention those below in the comment section and we'll be able to address those with Miguel Manzanares at another time. So guys, thank you for watching. If you like this video, please drop a like. And if you're new to the channel, especially if you're new to the channel, don't be shy, subscribe to the High Homes YouTube channel so we can keep you guys posted with the best content on Spanish real estate, lifestyle, property guides, and everything else. Miguel, let's say bye to them. Hasta luego.
Thank you very much. Adiós, gracias.